SEC Media Days as we broadcast from Nashville. Portions of the program brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Benjamin Watson joining us now, ESPN analyst, former Georgia player. And Benjamin, this is pretty wild. We were in a little bit closer to your home state or your home area in Atlanta last year, but now we're in Nashville.
Nice. It was nice. I mean, I just drove back home. I was home for dinner with the kids, put them to bed at night. You know, this is a little bit different. I love Atlanta. Nashville's nice, though. Nashville's great.
Nashville's fun, but you're kind of in enemy territory with the Vols. Let's talk Georgia. Boy, when Kirby Smart was hired, I had my questions if he was the guy. Those questions were all stupid now in retrospect. Benjamin, he is the guy. There's no question about it. How well is this thing rolling for Georgia right now?
It really is amazing to see it. And I'm not sure if you were the only one that had questions. Look, Kirby came. He had never been a head coach, didn't have head coaching experience. Yeah, he coached for a great in Nick Saban. But for Georgia to go out and say he's one of us, we see what he's done. We want to nab him before somebody else does. I think it was really the perfect marriage at the perfect time when you've got a guy who has ties to the university as a player and have been successful and had coached at Georgia in a assistant role before. But what he's doing now, continuing to do, they have a chance to win 3 national championships, something that hasn't been done since the 30s or 40s, has never been done in the modern era of college football. And look at this roster and say, wow, you keep losing so many players, but the cover is somehow still full with more 5 stars and more All-Americans. It's really a testament to not only his dedication, but the coaching staff that he's assembled around him.
Kudos to Georgia, too, and their fans. There was a lot of talk about Sanford Stadium and whether it was a hostile place to play when Tennessee played them. There's a guy named Erik Ainge that had a little something to say about it, and it got it all churned up. But, man, the Georgia fans responded. I did think at one point, maybe during your career, that it was a little subdued. But, man, it's not subdued anymore.
Well, it's not, and it should never be. I mean, you know, college football across the SEC, so many great stadiums, so many great fan bases that are just passionate, that show up for their team. I remember the first time walking into Tennessee, though, and this was the year 2001. And went there, played on the road. I remember walking into Tennessee in Knoxville, Neyland Stadium, and looking up and being like, this is different because of the way it was built. Sanford's a little wider. It's not built like for the noise. But the way Tennessee, the fans seem to be right on you. But I think the Georgia fans have been tremendous. I mean, not a day goes by living in Georgia that you don't walk by and somebody says, "Go Dogs." I mean, there's just such an excitement right now because of what Georgia has done.
No doubt about it, and there should be. I've said this before, and I mean it. If I had an opportunity to write a book on almost anybody, it might be Stetson Bennett because of what all he went through.
Book, movie, flip book, comic book, I mean, documentary, everything.
Yeah, and the thing is, I would have argued they lost a great leader maybe this time a year ago, but he turned himself into a great quarterback. What all did they lose in trying to replace Stetson Bennett with Carson Beck?
Well, I think the number one thing they lost with Stetson, when you listen to the other players talk about Stetson, that's what's always key. Is to listen to what teammates say about a guy and what they don't say about a player. And to a man, these guys were pulling for Stetson, partly because of the story, but I think also because they realized the leader that he was. This guy stood up to adversity, didn't back down. He was resilient. He was courageous. And, oh, by the way, he put his team in positions to win and make game-winning plays. And so he did it on both ends. And so the thing about college football is you're going to lose guys. That's just part of the deal. So that's what they lose in him. But when you look at a Carson Beck and even that quarterback room in general, Carson's not even the most highly touted player coming in. Again, the cupboard's not full, not bare. But Carson Beck has to come in and exhibit some of that same courage. He has to act like he's supposed to be there like Stetson did. He has to lead an offense that has the number one receiver from Mississippi State in Rara Thomas, the number one receiver from Missouri in Dominic Lovett, has the number one tight end of a generation in Brock Bowers. He has to be able to come in there and say, I'm the quarterback, I'm the leader, I'm the distributor. It goes through me and really own that role.
Yeah, that sounds good, and I completely agree with you. But how difficult is it to be a leader as a first-year starter?
It's very difficult, but that's why you play quarterback. And the great quarterbacks I played with throughout my career, even when they were young, there was something about them that differentiated themselves from others. And it's the nature of the position. I mean, even when you look at Tennessee and what Henry Hooker did last year, being a transfer and coming in and playing and all those sorts of things, he exhibited that type of leadership. Um, and so that's what you got to do at quarterback. And it's difficult for sure, but I think that with the veteran presence that they have around him, with that offensive line, um, they will rally around him and they're going to play with the level of excellence that we've seen them play with for the last several years.
Georgia's going to come under the spotlight because they've had success. There have been off-field issues with the traffic issues, the speeding, and some tragic car crashes. How big of a concern is that for you, and should it be for Georgia fans?
Well, it's a concern on a human level. Anytime there's a loss of life,
Amen.
That's a concern. That's sad. It's tragic. It shouldn't happen. We hate to see that happen. Anytime there are college students or individuals in general who are speeding or get pulled over or have run-ins with the law, no matter if they play football or not, that's a concern on a human level, a community level in general. That's a problem. As far as how it translates into football, it's not a net positive. The question is, how much of a detriment is it going to be? And again, it's about listening to what the players say. This team, from guys I've heard in media and interviews, seems to have come together in spite of these tragic events. Seems to have come together in spring practice, now going into summer practice. It seems that they haven't been phased in a way that would be detrimental and would splinter them. It seems like they've come together. That's positive. I'm interested to see today what Coach Smart says about it, if he addresses it at all, because it is something that has obviously been on the front page of newspapers.
No, it certainly has. I'm interested that you would talk about how it brings the team together. Again, I don't want to downplay the human tragedy that's there.
Oh, no, yeah.
But it seems like Kirby Smart, one of his best attributes is finding that rallying cry, even though Georgia's usually favored. Seems like he positions them as the team that's been picked on.
Well, I think I would presume that he may have learned that from one of the best, who also learned from one of the best, Nick Saban, and also a guy I played for, Coach Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. We were always favored in New England, but somehow we thought we were the underdog. And what Coach Belichick did was he was able to not just manufacture some sort of chip on our shoulder, but to say that nothing's promised because you walk out with a G on your helmet. So nothing was promised because you walked out with the flying Elvis on our helmet. It always came down to third down conversions. It came down to red zone defense. It came down to 2-minute drill. It came down to the turnover ratio. Those things don't change whether you're favored or not. I think what Kirby has done a good job of is reminding his players of that and coaching staff every single day in practice so that they play with a sense of urgency.
Last thing I got for you. I didn't think Nick Saban could keep up the pace in recruiting and coaching that he's been able to do long term. I thought he was going to be a classic burnout coach. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I look at Kirby Smart, I think the same thing. Am I right or am I wrong? Or
if he has any of the DNA of Saban after being under him, he got a long lifespan. I don't know how he does it. Like this guy, he's on a helicopter going here, he's going back here. 7 years of top 3 recruiting classes. This year, they've got the number 2 recruiting class, second to Alabama. But recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. I didn't realize that. Really, the last 3 years is when I've realized in doing analyst work that how important recruiting actually is. Because that's when your guys leave, you're able to replace them. So I don't know how he does it. He must have a heck of a deal with Starbucks coffee. I have no idea. But keep on, Coach.
Keep up the great work. Benjamin Watson, ESPN, SEC Network. You can see him, brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best service and best prices in the biz, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Network.com.